Hello everyone, my name is Holden Hardman. Thank you so much for joining us again for another video. Jen and I went and saw Wakanda Forever last night, and we wanted to do a review of it, just to talk about it. Obviously this is not a reaction, but it is a review. We'd love to talk about the movie. There will be some spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen it, you might want to click off and come back later. So just a heads up.
Honestly, I thought that they did a lot of things right with this movie. I enjoyed it overall. Pretty darn emotional. It felt very natural, of course, which makes sense given the situation. I love how they just jumped right into that emotion. They didn't waste time kind of building up. They jumped right into it. You know, they had the image of Chadwick Boseman on the, like, one of the walls, and I thought that was just sweet. I, in particular, enjoyed the characters of Okoye and M'Baku. They were fantastic in this movie. In particular, M'Baku brought kind of a balance. At one point, they were really at odds with him, and it kind of came full circle in this movie. He really was an important character, and that came through. I think he did a fantastic job. And Okoye was really funny. I don't remember her being that funny in the previous one, but she was hilarious in this. I appreciated that. I think they did a great job with balancing the humor, especially given the tone of the movie. It wasn't too much for me. It was just enough, so I also appreciate that. One thing that I love most about this movie was probably this underwater civilization. I don't remember what his name was. Cuckoo? Was it Cuckoo?
Cuckoo Khan, Namor.
Namor? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just call him Cuckoo because that's a lot easier. When you look at it, Cuckoo and what?
Namor.
Cuckoo and Shuri, when you look at their characters, they really have kind of the same goal in mind. They both want to just preserve their people, their way of life from the outside world. I appreciate that they had a lot of similarities. They didn't make Cuckoo straight out unlikable. I thought he was gonna be a straight up villain. I was gonna hate him, and that wasn't the case, you know? At the end of the day, he just wants to save his people. The relationship between him and Shuri, I mean, they were just sitting having a conversation. It wasn't at each other's throats or at war the entire time. And I love the story of their background, how they were able to create their civilization, how they came to be. I thought that was great. It was beautifully done. The civilization alone was highly created. Everything from their outfits, their faces, the things that they had over their noses, I thought they were fantastic. That was definitely the highlight for me in this movie. You know, Shuri I really love as a character. However, I don't know how to feel about her replacing Black Panther. To me, it was lukewarm. I realize that I'm a little biased because Chadwick Boseman was such a perfect fit for that role, and I think that no matter who would have played the replacement, I think it just wouldn't have held up to Chadwick Boseman playing that part. At the end of the day, that's just what it is. But I think that she did a fantastic job with that in mind. Do I prefer Chadwick Boseman? I'm sure a lot of people do. But given the situation, they did a great job. I think that was a very natural way to go versus somebody that we don't know. We like Shuri, she's a good character, but at the end of the day, there was a couple scenes where I was just like, oh, Chadwick Boseman. You know, and I think that that's just a natural feeling, but as far as her acting and everything, I thought that she did a great job. Ironheart, is that her name? The scientist. I was thinking halfway through the movie, I was like, you know, she's just kind of around. We hear so much about this character and that she has these capabilities to create this technology. It was very clear that she was smart, she was very capable. I was getting very concerned because I was like, I'm not seeing any of this. You know, we have Shuri, we have Okoye kind of protecting her. At one point, the Queen is protecting her, but we're not seeing anything. And then in the end, she really came through, and her and Shuri had this like brainstorming session where they came up with their plan. So I was really relieved because that's what I wanted. I wanted to see her in action. I wanted to see what they were building her up to be. You know, we spent a lot of time focusing on that. So they did a great job and kind of saved the day with that. Was I able to connect with her? Not really. I mean, there was a couple of months where I thought she was very funny and she was very likable, but for me, because of the tone of the movie, I was very interested in Shuri and how she comes to replace the Black Panther and this underwater civilization. So that for me was really what held the interest for most of this movie. And I think visually, the underwater civilization was a big reason why I like this movie. It was highly creative. The action scenes I think were fantastic, in particular the water scenes, especially, you know, Cuckoo takes Shuri into this like underwater cave, their like city, I guess. And that was so fantastic to watch. And then I have to mention, this movie was highly emotional because not only did we have the predicament of Black Panther is dead, but then unexpectedly the Queen died too, around trying to protect the scientists, which, oh my gosh, I was like, what the heck is going on? But they did such a great job at bringing all those emotions to the surface. And then to top it off, we get one of the final scenes. We find out T'Challa has a child. Oh my gosh, that could not have been any more brilliant. I thought that was great. T'Challa helped set it up that way purposely so that he would be protected. The Queen had met him. I'm just completely in awe. I think that was probably one of the better post-credit scenes that I've seen. It was the most heartwarming. I really don't have any complaints about the movie. I think that I may like it just a tad more than the last one, in particular the underwater people. Civilization. I think that was great, and they were so mysterious, creative. There was a couple CGI scenes that looked a little rough with Cuckoo. It did look a little rough, but besides that, I think it was fantastic. It was a very sad movie, you know, knowing what we know, but I think it was beautifully done. I think the storyline was really easy to follow. It was also very gripping. A lot of surprises thrown in there, and I loved it. I thought it was great.
Overall, start broadly, I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was, like Jen said, I thought it was great. The big question I had going into it was, how do you handle the death of T'Challa? Because we know that they're not going to continue on T'Challa with recasting him. I knew that that was going to be a challenge regardless. And I think given the circumstance, they did the best that they could do. I think choosing Shuri was probably the best move given the circumstances. Started the movie with his funeral. Oh my gosh, it sucks. It sucks because it's, you know, he really passed away. It's one thing when like the character passes away, but probably easier in the sense for those actors because they really knew Chadwick Boseman. So they probably didn't have to like dig deep, you know, they really lost their friend. So that whole funeral sequence was really tough, especially seeing the coffin with the Black Panther, you know, going up into the spaceship. Really, really tough. Marvel has handled grief in different ways. We saw it in WandaVision with Wanda after losing Vision. And this movie was really about grief. And I feel like it was about both the Queen's grief and about Shuri's grief. Okoye as well, but really those two. There are a few moments, really powerful moments with the Queen where she's like, I've given everything. I've lost my husband, I've lost my child, you know, we've lost the Black Panther herb, I lost my throne. When I lost my throne, you guys sided with Killmonger. Now that I'm in power, you're loyal to me again. You know, all those really intensive moments. And she's like, I've given everything. Absolutely fantastic acting on her part. One of the most gripping scenes probably in the whole MCU, I would argue. She just blew that out of the water. And then dealing with Shuri and how Shuri is really about vengeance. In a lot of ways, going through what T'Challa went through when we first saw him in Civil War. When T'Challa lost King T'Chaka, he was on a mission to kill the Winter Soldier, and he was just consumed by vengeance. They alluded to that at the end of Wakanda Forever. She's like, it's consumed us both, let's not let it consume everyone else. So I like that she, as Black Panther, had to learn the same lesson that T'Challa did. Some nice poetry there. Namor, I really enjoyed. I will say, when I first saw the little wings on his feet, I was like, all right, that's fine, I guess. And I know that that's comic accurate, and it's hard to make that look really, really cool. A little goofy to me, just character design ways. And I know that they were trying to be honorable to the comics. It looked a little goofy, but I did like how they made him super intimidating regardless, I guess, to kind of make up for it, because he was really, really great. And the fact that he's like creeping into Wakanda, and all of the blue people, I thought were really, really intimidating as well. Because a lot of it, because they were so silent, they were just deadly, they were just killing people. It almost felt like a little preview of Avatar 2, because he had these blue people swimming on whales and stuff, and I thought that the underwater sequences were great. To be honest, a lot of those sequences reminded me of Aquaman in the way that they were shot and how they were dealt, and how do you have people talking underwater, how do you have things moving in the background underwater. I love this sort of Aztec design that they use with like the feather headdresses, and how the Wakandans and they had a similar history with having been overthrown in the past and then now having a chance chance to, well, now we're in power, now we have all the resources, we're in control. And Shuri was kind of like really on the fence about it for a long time. So the thing about Shuri, and I wasn't sure how this was going to play out, but the movie she really became the central character. I love Shuri. I think that she's a great character, but I think that she's a great supporting character. Her being the new Black Panther is good. It's fine, given the circumstances, as good as that can get, I guess. She's okay. I'm not dismissing her. I love the whole story of the whole movie as a whole, but when I think of like, Chadwick Boseman is no longer Black Panther, Shuri is, I'm like, okay, all right. Okoye, I loved her journey through this movie. Jen mentioned that she was a lot funnier in this movie, and we've been getting these little seeds of humor of her throughout the MCU. We saw a little bit in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. She's had a couple jokes like Infinity War, where she's like, why was she up there all this time? Talking about Wanda. So she has these little jokes thrown in, but they definitely made her funny. And to contrast that, they also gave her some of the most emotional moments as well, like that scene with the Queen that I mentioned again. We got to see her act. And one of my biggest praises for this movie, probably in all of Phase 4, they let this movie be a movie. And what I mean by that is that I felt like they took away a lot of the Marvel-isms that have been getting more criticism in recent years. Everything's a joke, everything's campy, nothing's serious. And they pulled back like 90%, which was so nice to see. We got to see emotional sequences, and then they held them there and they let them be, instead of having the cue the one-liner that breaks the tension. They let it be, and I'm so appreciative of that. They made M'Baku a more of a comedic role in this. He was still great, but he was probably one of the more comic relief in the whole movie.
Sick.
Yeah, hilarious. I love that. And it wasn't too much. Not only was it not too much, but it was Goldilocks, just the right amount. Ironheart, again, was kind of fine. I think Marvel is struggling with how they're introducing all these new characters. Like in She-Hulk, when they have Hulk introduce Scar. And he's like, oh, by the way, I have a son. And then in this one, oh, by the way, there's Ironheart, and she'll be doing some stuff as well. And then, oh, Chadwick Boseman has a kid here as well. This is T'Challa Jr. To try and get us on the hook, but we're getting into this issue where they're just introducing these characters as enough to get us on the hook for them, but I need a little bit more. So for example, for Ironheart, I am really interested in Ironheart because I know that she is like supposed to be Tony Stark level intelligence. In the movie, she builds a suit. I think her placement in the movie was appropriate, given that she's the one that discovered how to find vibranium, and all these people are coming after her now. And then her role ended up kind of being reduced to Iron Man Jr. helping out in the end, and that was kind of the extent of that. I don't really know her, I like her, I think she's funny, but I don't know her. That's one thing I would like to have seen more of. Action sequences were great. The CGI in this movie overall was good, but like Jen said, there were a few moments where it looked bad, especially in some green screen or just like background replacement. It looked off, took me out in a couple of those moments. I don't know if that read for y'all, but it did for me. Lupita Nyong'o, I was so happy to see her return. I guess she hadn't really been around since the events of Endgame. Fantastic actress. And then of course they have their little son. The Queen knew the son, and T'Challa Jr. should therefore be next in line for the throne. The only other thing, when T'Challa died, there was no more Black Panther, but she recreated the herb and all that, and she got the Black Panther suit. When it came to when Shuri had the Black Panther power back, and really just the power disparity in Wakanda, who gets to be king, who gets to be queen. In the first Black Panther movie, it was a whole big ordeal of trial by combat of who gets to be in this leadership role. And at least a year had passed between when T'Challa died and the events of the rest of the Wakanda Forever movie, where the queen was just queen. So I'm wondering why there was never again like another recollection of all these people to like all the other tribes to try to claim the power of the throne. I know that they did a sequence at the end there, but nobody really seemed to have any problem with that. Overall, I think that as far as like entertainment value, as far as what I got out of it, I think I really liked probably the first Black Panther more as far as like leisure viewing. Whereas I think Wakanda Forever is probably the better of the two movies. Does that make sense? Like I would watch Black Panther preferably on my own time, but I can acknowledge that Wakanda Forever is probably the better of the two movies. Oh, and then Killmonger. I thought having Shuri see Killmonger in the astral plane was a great move. We got to see Michael B. Jordan come back. He's probably one of the best actors in Hollywood right now. He's killing it, by the way. He directed and is starring in Creed 3 and it looks fantastic. Anyway, so I thought that was a really cool move because I didn't know what they were going to do with that. I didn't know if they were going to have her see maybe her father. Were they going to try and bring back Chadwick Boseman for just a moment using, deep fakes or voice AI or something? We've seen them do that in the past in the new Ghostbusters movie. Similar things with Luke Skywalker. I know he hasn't passed away, but we've seen them bring these characters back posthumously. So I think her seeing Killmonger was really great. So overall, I really enjoyed it. What would you rate this one?
To echo what you said, I think that this is probably the best case scenario for the situation we were in when Chadwick Boseman died. Shuri as the new Black Panther, it came out as best as it could. However, you know, I can't help how I feel. I miss Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. When I think of Black Panther, I think of him. I don't think of Shuri. Had Chadwick Boseman been in this one with the water civilization and everything else that was in this movie, I think it quite possibly could have been a 10 for me. I think it would have knocked it out of the park. But I think they did a fantastic job with the action sequences. I love that it wasn't just the United States versus the Wakandans. They threw in that third party. The movie had a lot of emotion and heart to it, and they did a great job of having that come through with every single character. We saw it with Shuri, we saw it with the Queen, we saw it with Nakia. I thought it was fantastic. But without the water civilization, that storyline that they had going on, I don't think it measures up to the first Black Panther. However, with the water civilization, how creative that was, you know, with how heartfelt the Queen was and everything else that was going on, I think it came out fantastic. I'm really having a hard time determining overall if I love it more. I think I'm gonna give it a 9. I think I gave Black Panther a 9.5. I wanna say I gave it a 9.5, and I'm gonna give this a 9, but I really do wanna give it a 9.5, but I'm just not there. But overall, I thought it was great. I was completely into the movie. It was interesting every single moment of it. I think they did a great job. Very, very creative.
There is a Chadwick Boseman-sized hole in this movie, and they tried to fill it with as much good stuff as they could. But there's a part of me, just like when Heath Ledger passed away after The Dark Knight, there's that part of you that's like, gosh, what would the sequel have been like if he was there? Like, if Heath Ledger hadn't died, what would The Dark Knight Rises have been? If Chadwick Boseman was still alive, what would his interaction with Namor have been? How different would the plot have been? They were probably always going to bring Namor and the water civilization in there the whole time, so what would have happened? It's those questions. I try not to dwell on them too much. You don't want to hold on too much to what could have been. What we got was an absolutely best case scenario, and I think they handled it in the most tasteful way that both honors Chadwick and is also not moving on, but moving forward. So for me, I'll give this one a 9 as well. I think pretty solid. I need to give it another rewatch. I think initially there was some stuff I was like, I don't know about that. Oh, I like that a lot. I think I need to give it another fresh rewatch probably here. Right now, leisurely, I think I would prefer watching Black Panther on my own time, but this one is the better movie. Those are just some of our thoughts. We'd love to know some of your thoughts down in the comments below. I know this was a longer video, so thank you guys for sticking it out with us. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like. It does help the channel out a lot. Subscribe, you'll be notified when we post the next video. And check out Patreon. You can watch some stuff early. You can watch full-length reactions along with us. There's also some Patreon exclusives over there, so a lot of things going on over there. But for now, that is it. Jen and I appreciate you watching. We will catch you in the next video. Take care.